everyone. I think we can begin the program now.
Do any of you guys participate in Euro nymphing, and what are your thoughts about it? And I also own the Shadow X 10-foot 3-weight, and I think it's a great rod for dry fly fishing as well as Euro nymphing or even indicator fishing. So it's a heck of a tool for fishing in Oregon waters. But why don't you start, since you got the mic in your hand? Why don't you start with the answer on your thoughts about Euro nymphing?
Well, I was going to hand the mic to Rick, but get out of this. I started the Euro nymphing a few years ago, and it's a deadly technique when used in the right situation. The pros are you can catch a lot of fish, Euro nymphing, and the cons are it's a little repetitive, and you can have a certain fish clicker mentality, and just let's see how many I can catch today, and I don't like falling into that mode of thinking. And you really, back to my question, or the first question about questioning things, and ask yourself, is this really fly fishing? And that starts getting into some pretty tough areas. But the other part of asking yourself why it works so well is, ask yourself, why does it work so well? Because done right with the right gear, you're putting a very small fly down near the bottom in a very natural dead drift, which you cannot get with a different kind of a rig. If you start thinking of Euro nymphing, you start with the fly. You've got a very small, heavy fly, not heavy for its size, sparsely dressed, that sinks, boom, straight down toward the bottom. And then you put and when the current is moving at a slower speed at the bottom than it is on the surface. You do indicator fishing, your nymph is going to be going along at the speed of the surface current, not the speed of the current at the bottom. So if you want a natural drift, you get it right down on the bottom. And now don't screw it up. And how you don't screw it up, don't use a thick leader. I started with a 6X fluorocarbon leader, and I went to 5.5X because it's easier to tie, not because it catches more fish, but it's easier to do knots with 5.5X. So you want a very thin leader, so you don't get the pressure of the water disturbing the fly's natural drift, and you have an extremely lightweight line so that the line sag does not mess with your drift. And then to handle all of that, you've got to have a very limber, extra long rod. And so that's the proper Euro nymphing outfit. Euro nymphing does not mean fishing your flies right down on the bottom with any kind of rig. It's a very specific setup and done in a very specific way. And it's deadly. It's easy to get to be so-so Euro nymphing, but it's hard to do it really well.
Okay, what Scott said. So, I agree with Scott. There's not a lot I need to add to that, other than I would say it's not a fad. It's not going to go away. It's something, because it's so effective and it's become well known in the broader community of fly fishers now. People are going to continue to do it because it's so effective. There is a learning curve to it. And it's not something, at least for me, I found I could just buy the rig in the shop and go out that half an hour later and really have it nailed down. So there is definite learning curve. If you can go out with somebody that really understands it, it'll shorten your learning curve. There's a lot of great videos out there you can watch as well, and there's some great books on it. So study up on it a bit. And the only other thing I would say that echoes what Scott said is that it's not fly fishing in a way, because you're not fly casting, and I really enjoy fly casting too. And so it doesn't have the same sort of grace to it in my mind. And I find myself also realizing that for me, it's kind of easy to get sort of in this groove where you're going to Euro nymph because, wow, I'll catch some fish. And then realize, geez, if I swung soft hackles in this, water that's just downstream, I might catch just as many fish. So don't get hung up that it's like the thing to do, and it's, focus only on that. But the nice thing about fly fishing, you can do whatever you want. So give it a try, and it's fun to learn and something to enjoy.
I'm old and I've caught a lot of fish in my life, and I don't have to catch as many fish as I used to. Another thing I have against Euro nymphing, which is pretty mild, but when you're rigged for Euro nymphing, you're not rigged for anything else. And I like swinging soft tackles, and I like dry fly fishing if there's a hatch. So I like to be able to fish for those things. So that goes back to my favorite outfit. The flip side is that Devin Olson, if you ever heard of Devin Olson, he's used to be on the competition U.S. team with Lance Egan, and he read a lot of my books, and he's a fan, and he had bought me breakfast one time and told me about Euro nymphing and gave me his book on Euro nymphing and his 2 DVDs. So, I got outfitted with his recommendations for it, and I went fishing one time on a river that I know that I fished with a guy named Hafele, and I caught a 7-pound fish the first time I went Euro nymphing, and it was a nice rainbow, 7-pound rainbow, and I quit. So I haven't been Euro nymphing since. And it may just be that I want to keep my percentages up. I don't know. But my answer is I don't Euro nymph. And that's just personality, a defect in my personality, if you'll put it that way. Thank you.
Well, don't ruin a good thing, right? I mean, a 7-pound fish, don't ruin a good thing. You killed it.
Yeah,
Not the fish, but yeah.
Well, I certainly have a good memory.